That one didn't work, but that's a great disaster. Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Wendy here from Toonpish Crafts, and I hope you're doing okay. Now, you may know or realise that I make a lot of silicone inlays, silicone sheets and little tiny silicone pieces that you can put into resin. Well, it occurred to me I hadn't actually tried them inside EcoPores. Now, I did do a little test piece, and I think I'll include that into this video, but I hadn't put them into moulds. So I thought I'd try out the EcoPore with some silicone inlays and see what we get. And I'm going to use some different methods as well. Yeah, I'm just going to have a play around. So I filmed this quite a while ago. I'm trying out a silicone inlay sheet with some Magic Pour, coloured purple of course. And that's Let's Resin version of the EcoPore, which is a casting compound. And after 30 minutes, when it's cured, beautiful colour by the way, it came off of the silicone inlay sheet beautifully. So I knew it worked. I have the little tea light holder mould from the Magic Pour starter kit set and a silicone inlay sheet which I've made myself, and actually do sell these on toonpish.com. If you want to go and check them out, that's up to you. But I will link one of the videos that shows you how you can make them yourself. And I'm working out the inner circle of this tea light holder mould with a piece of leather, and I know that piece of leather then is going to fit the inside of the tea light holder, and it's also the right length for the silicone. So I figured what better way to get a straight edge than to use a guillotine. Now this is a very cheap guillotine. I think it actually came free with something else I bought, but it's very handy. I need to figure out the depth, which is 1 inch. And as long as I've got the piece of silicone at least 1 inch deep, then I can cut my silicone in a straight line. I do give it a few up and down movements with the blades to make sure I've cut through it. I have a really nice straight edge. Now this is going to be a little bit too big because the leather was a little bit too big. And in order to get the silicone inlay inside the mould, I've sprayed isopropyl alcohol on the back so that it slides in really easy. Now you can see that it's overlapping, so I need to make a cut, a little snip or mark in that inlay so that I know where to cut. Taking it out, I have the mark. I get a bigger pair of scissors because silicone is easier to cut with a large pair of scissors. Snip it straight across. Again, put the isopropyl alcohol on the back and it slides into that mould absolutely beautifully. I've also cut a circle to go on the top. Similar sort of process, just making a template and cutting the circle. Now this is a chameleon pigment that's Emma's. It's not for sale yet, it's a test piece, and bless her, she gave it to me to try out. She knows I like purple, and this is a very glittery purple. I'll let you know if this one becomes available. At the moment it's in the test phase. I'm sitting here watching the video back and I'm wondering what colours are in there. I think it's a lilac blue. It's a gorgeous colour. It's got kind of a copper in there. So I coloured the whole thing, right the way around, inside and everything. And I wanted to see if Magic Pour would pick up the mica. I also have a spare mould on the side, and I put a really sweet piece of silicone inlay on the top of that one too. So it's time to mix up the Magic Pour, and I'm going to use some buonite pigment in it. It's black and I want as black as possible from a white powder. Not an easy thing to do. The magic pool is a 3:1 by weight ratio, so with 50 ml of water you need 150 ml of powder. And I do measure it out exactly just so that I know I've got it right. I'm still a novice at this. You pour the powder into the water, gently as possible, and if you're like me, you chuck it all in and it still mixes really well. I'm quite surprised how well this stuff mixes. You only need to mix for a minute or so, and that's when I start adding in the black pigment. And remember when you open those bottles to take the white ring off, because otherwise you'll end up with it in your mix and you may not see it. I only just saw that. So I kept adding the black until I got as dark as I wanted. Now really I should have gone a little bit darker. I was forgetting that it cures white. The darker the better with chameleon pigments or powders. I'm just pouring black into these pieces. I want to see if the magic pool picks up the mica, and hopefully it will pick up the pattern and everything as well. So just 30 minutes later and I can demould. I love quick demolds. And starting with the large tray, it came out of the mould lovely. I'll take the middle out in one moment once I've demolded the little tea light holder. This is the one that I really want to see. I want to see the pattern on the outside and the inside, see if it works. There is a little bit of a lip where the inlay has not quite met the bottom of the mould, but that just comes off. Now this is where I didn't realise that mica powder was actually coming off on my hands. You see my hands are getting dirtier and dirtier, and I didn't actually realise at the time that the mica powder was just not staying. It was just coming off on my fingers. So I decided to get a baby wipe and see how much of the mica would actually come off. Now obviously there's grooves in this pot, which I absolutely love. The pattern is gorgeous and the colour is absolutely beautiful. And then the colour is not going to come off where it is settled in the pattern, but it's coming off pretty much everywhere else, and that's just with the baby wipe. Now you can actually see that the underside colour isn't black, it's grey. And I didn't put enough black in to get a black base, but that would have been quite stunning if it was black. However, I need to think about sealing that in. But going back to the little tray mould, and the pattern on that is absolutely adorable. So I definitely want to seal these in. I want to keep that mica on the piece. So I had to think about it, and I figured that varnish was probably my best bet. Now this little tube is something I bought from Amazon a while ago, and I bought it because it was like a varnish pen. It works in the same kind of way as the chrome pens do. You prime the nib and then you can rub it over an area and varnish it. Now, I'd never used this before and it was not the best idea. However, it was the only varnish I had to hand, and therefore I thought I'm just going to go ahead and use it. It was drippy, it was sticky, it was not a nice thing to use, but it was varnish. I ended up decanting it and using a paintbrush to get an even coat. That's pretty much the only way I could think of as really using this to its full potential. And I did exactly the same to the large piece. I decanted some of the varnish and I coated it to keep the mica powder locked in. So after that attempt, I wanted to try out some thicker silicone patterns with plain magic pool to see if it would give a nicer effect, but I didn't just want to do it white. So I decided not to just go with white. I've decided to use 3 colours, and I've got a deeper pattern with a thicker inlay sheet. I'm going to use some blue, some red and some white. Yeah, it's red, white and blue. I don't know why I always choose red, white and blue. It's probably because I know they make purple, but anyway, That's the 3 colours I'm going to choose. I'm going to do the similar thing, but obviously I haven't coated the inlays in any kind of mica or foil or anything. I'm just going with colour and the inlays, and I want to see how these will come out. So I've mixed my 3 colours with the little tea light holder. I'm using all 3, gently changing each colour as I pour, and I'm just going to put a stick through that later and just swirl it a bit. With the larger piece, I'm going to basically do pink and blue because I've used most of the white up anyway. I think there's only white left. I'm just going to pour the white on top to make sure I get that up to the top of the mould. That won't come through on the bottom, I don't think. I give it a little bit of a swirl, more swirly with the large piece than the smaller piece. I am interested to see what that does with the colours as well. "30 minutes later and I can demould, and boy, I'm excited with this one. I really like pastel colours, and this blue and pink, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really like that, and the pattern is lovely. Silicone came out with the mould itself, and it did more or less with the little tea light holder as well. Again, there's a bit of a lip. Now this time there's a bit more of a lip because the silicone inlay wasn't quite to the bottom, and I had to fish out the middle of this one. I think the thicker the silicone, the harder it is to get it in place in the tea light holder mould. There is a little bit of a lip with that one, but I really like the pattern. And the colours, swirly, really sweet. So I decided to have one more go. And this time this is quite a thick silicone, and it's going in the bigger mould. It's quite a lovely pattern though. And we have a really thin piece to go around the outside edge of the tea light. And I'm going to try some chameleon flakes. Now these are Emma's chameleon flakes. I do sell them on toonpish.com. You don't have to use Emma's flakes. There are plenty of flakes available on the market. I do love these flakes though. They are stunning. And I'm going to cover this entire piece with the flakes. I'm also going to cover the inside of the mould as well. As if by magic, it's all done. That was much quicker for you than it was for me. Again, I'm using the isopropyl alcohol to put it into the mould and to position it how I want. And again, I've no idea if this is going to work, but it's worth a try, isn't it? Now, for some reason, I think I picked up one of the strips that was a trial strip, not the one I used last time. Even though the pattern is the same, I did a couple of trial strips that were not the right size, and this one isn't the right size. So obviously picked up the wrong strip, but as I've coloured it, I continue to use it even though there's a slight gap in the top. It doesn't matter, experimental purposes anyway. On the day I actually thought it had shrunk, but it occurred to me while I was editing this video that no, I'd actually picked up the wrong strip. The other mould has an inlay, and I'm going to try out Eclipse. Now Eclipse is one of Emma's ghost pigments. It's an ethereal pigment, and I'm going to cover the mould and the inlay in this pigment. With any ghost pigment or ethereal pigment, you'll only see the proper colour with a dark colour behind it, but it does look a shimmery, beautiful blue if you see it on a white background like you did on the mould. You can't see it at all when it's on a blue silicone inlay. It looks kind of yellow, very bizarre. So I've mixed up another batch of magic pour, and this time I'm going to do half white and half black. I'm trying really hard to put enough black pigment in this black, but I still am a little cautious of over pigmenting it. With the little tea light holder, it's just going to be black. Everything is covered with foils, so it needs to have black behind it. But with the ghost pigment, I figured it would be cool to have it half black and half white to see the difference of one colour. Again, I use a stick to give it a little twirl. So this was about an hour later. I left it a little bit longer for some reason. I think I went off and had dinner or something. But on first impressions of the larger mould, it looks like the silicone inlay lifted for whatever reason. Maybe the seal underneath it wasn't great, or maybe it was me moving it around. And that magic pour really had cured up. I didn't quite realise how thick it was that I was trying to break up to get the silicone inlay out. I thought it was just a thin layer. It became apparent a bit later on how thick it really was. And it's a bit of a testament to how strong magic pour is, really. I really struggled to get this inlay out, and it had only been cured for an hour. I think I needed a hammer, but I didn't want to go to the garage. You know what it's like. It's too far out there and it's too cold. So I kept chipping away, and eventually it came out. But it still left a lip, and I wanted that lip gone. But I didn't see that coming. Right, well, that one didn't work, but that's a great disaster. That really lifted. I like the colours though. Moving on quickly to the other piece that I used the foils with, and hopefully I don't have the same issue with this one. Actually, the centrepiece came out with the mould. Now the magic pour did not pick up the foils very well at all. So we've got a little bit of a shimmer, and that's about it. Finally, I just wanted to try out some watered down black acrylic paint to see if I could pick up the picture or the details of the inlay that's in the centre of the blue and pink piece. Now I really liked this blue and pink, but I wanted to see if the black in the outlines of the picture would make it pop. What I didn't know was that the black acrylic paint was going to seep into the magic pour and dull the colour completely. So in order to try and rectify that, I got some sandpaper out and I decided to sand the middle a little to try and get those bright colours back. It worked a little as I waxed it afterwards, but it didn't completely bring the colour back to the brightness I wanted. I finished these pieces with sticky back cork, one of Claire's ideas. I know she uses it on her Jasmonite quite a bit. Now some of these pieces I really love. This little pink, white and blue one is adorable, and I've waxed that and got it to a bit of a shimmer too. Really love how that came out. And I hope you've got something out of this video too. If you haven't subscribed already, maybe you would consider doing so. It doesn't cost anything and it does help my channel out. This little pink and blue one, I was well disappointed that it went so dull, but I love the pattern and I love how the black has picked up the pattern. I was quite gutted that the mica powder was coming off on my hands with the ones I tried, but you can seal them in and this one is completely sealed. The other two I spruced up with some Let's Resin chrome markers. The flake pieces were a little bit of a disaster, but when you spruce them up, they actually look really quite nice. Again, I did seal these in, though I don't think you really needed to because I don't think the flakes were coming off, but you have to seal casting compounds anyway. Now the one with the mica powder, where I washed off all of the mica powder on the outside, I needed to do something with it. So I went over the entire piece around the outside with the silver marker pen, and I really love how that came out. And overall, I think those inlays worked really well. But the thinner the silicone, the better the effect. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Come back and see me next week because you never know what I'm going to be up to. I never know what I'm going to be up to. Have a great week, happy crafting, and bye for now.